International condemnations are pouring in over President Donald Trump's possible intention to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem Al-Quds.
The Iraqi government has a clear-cut stance to the news reporting that the U.S. determined to recognize Jerusalem as a capital to Israel. The Iraqi cabinet vehemently rejects this step and expresses deep concern over such step and over moving the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. The Iraqi government strongly warns of the decision's fallout and ramifications.
Iraqi Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi said the U.S. decision will have a prejudice against the rights of Palestinians, the Arab and Islamic world, and other religions. He added that the measure will cause turmoil in the region. Saudi King Salman warned Trump that moving the embassy is a dangerous step that provokes the feelings of Muslims around the world. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan warned that Al-Quds is a red line for Muslims.
Once more, I would like to express my sadness upon the preparation of the U.S. to declare the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Mr. Trump, Jerusalem is a red line for Muslims. Taking such decision to give support to Israeli administration while the violations of the rights, pressures and cruelty are continuing every single day while the Palestinian brothers are suffering their wounds is not just violation of the international law, but also a big blow to the conscience of humanity.
Erdogan pledged to keep fighting Trump's decision. He also warned to cut diplomatic relations with Israel. UN Secretary General warned Trump about taking any unilateral decision that could undermine the two-state solution. Meanwhile, Jordan is planning to convene emergency meetings of the Arab League and Organization of Islamic Cooperation over the weekend on how to face the consequences of the U.S. president's decision. Joining us live now from Seattle is Richard Silverstein, who is a journalist and political commentator. As always, thanks for joining us. What do you make of the U.S. move to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem Al-Quds?
Well, I think it's an outrageous development that breaks with decades of U.S. policy from presidents of both parties, Democrats and Republicans. And it just shows that Trump is completely reckless and just non-comprehending in terms of how the U.S. should approach its policy with nations of the Middle East. I want to also point out that the leading Trump administration figure, Jared Kushner, who is supposedly negotiating Israeli-Palestinian peace, has a conflict of interest because he sits on the board of his family foundation, which is giving money to Israeli settlements, and he negotiated against the UN Security Council resolution that criticized Israeli settlements and had a conflict of interest, which he didn't declare on his federal campaign disclosure forms, which is a violation of federal law. So the Trump administration is hopelessly compromised on this issue. It's hopelessly pro-Israel. It's showing a reckless disregard for the impact this will have on the Arab and Muslim world. I predict that there's going to be levels of violence in Israel and in Palestine about this issue. The only question is how much violence will there be and what the fallout will be. I would hope that if the Arab world and the Muslim world really was feeling strongly about this issue, they would cut off relations not just with Israel, as Turkey has threatened, but also with the United States itself, or at least recall their ambassadors from Washington. The Arab world has to unite and show its opposition to the Trump administration and this approach and not take half measures, which is what they have been doing until now.
It's weird, though, isn't it? Because, as you mentioned in your first answer, the Trump administration is gung-ho about coming to some sort of peace settlement between the Israelis and Palestinians, and yet Trump wants to move the embassy and obviously seemingly provoke, really, the Palestinian and Arab Muslim world. How can he then achieve peace?
He can't. I think that either this is an admission on the part of Trump that the peace plan is dead, or he's being totally oblivious and ignorant about the impact this will have on the Arab world. It will destroy the chances of a peace agreement. So, you know, frankly, in the way that Trump has pursued his presidency, I think he just doesn't care or think about these things. He doesn't have a long-range approach. He doesn't have a strategic approach. He just goes about sort of impulsively deciding what he's going to do in the next hour or the next day, and doesn't think about what's going to happen a week or a month or a year later. It's the most extreme, insane kind of presidency that I think many of us have ever seen in this country.
Very well. We'll leave it there at that. But of course, as always, we appreciate you taking your time out to share your insight with us.